All right, we're good to go, Nipo?
Yes, we're good right now.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna restart that. Like I said, thank you all for coming. Today we are going to be talking about the heating season, which we are in currently, as well as HP actions, how to do them, what's the process, things like that. So to get started on today's training, we're first going to talk about New York City's heat laws, and what the city regulations are, and a little bit of background. So for New York City, we've had heat laws since 1918. And over time, they have changed. And same thing about ideas of what health and safety is and how it applies to the regulations also have changed over time, as well as heating technology. Unfortunately, there are no laws at the moment requiring air conditioning in hot months like there is for requiring heat in cold months.
And I put some links into the chat about the history of the heat laws and a proposed air conditioning law.
There are city regulations on hot water must be provided 365 days per year. The minimum temperature should be 120 Fahrenheit. Building owners must provide heat on October the 1st to May 31st. And heat guidelines is from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. daytime. If it's below 55 degrees Fahrenheit outside, it must be at least 68 degrees inside your apartment. Between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. nighttime, temperature must be at least 62 Fahrenheit inside. No outdoor temperature requirement. Even if the tenant controls and pays for heat, the equipment must work properly. One of the things we do tell tenant, if you're going to file a heat complaint, is to keep a charge and keep a thermometer inside your house, because that's how you'll be able to know exactly what's the heat inside your apartment and the temperature outside the industry.
Yep. So, we just briefly listed what those city regulations are, but HPD does have these fun little graphics that you usually can find. Sometimes we have them at our table, and you can find them at other, city agencies as well, especially around this time of year. But this graphic here can be found right on HPD's website. It can be printed out. I do see we have a few folks from a tenant union here, so that is something that's great that can be shared as a resource, in case we need to refer back to those. So this is where you'd be able to find the graphic with all that information that we just explained.
And the links in the chat.
What to do if you have no heat? The first thing you do is contact your landlord, either by phone or email. If you're not able to get in touch with the landlord or the landlord's not responding to your complaint, contact HPD by calling 311 to make a complaint and ask for inspection. And also keep track of the day and times that you didn't have any heat and when you call the landlord. Get a thermometer and start logging the conditions. If after you do all of this, they still haven't done anything, then start a case against your landlord in housing court in an HP action.
Gina, we've got a question. What do you guys recommend? Digital or one of those the non-digital thermometers, like with the mercury going up and down? Which do you find is better?
To be honest, I would not know which one is better, just as long as you don't keep it in the kitchen, which is the hottest part of the household. I keep the simple one, which is where the mercury goes up and down. And I keep it like in the middle of the house, because that will actually measure both things. So I believe it's whichever one you think actually works better for you, but just don't keep it in the kitchen.
Um, I
Because
had a
always
heat
cooking in
problem,
the kitchen.
right?
That's my opinion.
I had a heat problem, and I actually got both the digital and the non-digital. And the non-digital one is kind of great if your if your water temperature is off, because the non-digital one, you can stick it under the water to show that it's not getting as hot as it's supposed to.
Yep, absolutely. So as we're talking thermometer and tracking, this is a perfect segue into what we call a heat log. So this first sheet that you're seeing is produced and printed by Housing Court Answers, but the information is public information. Again, if you come speak with us at the table, we're happy to print one of these out for you. And I think you might be able to find the heat sheet on our website. I would have to double check. Can
And
you?
it's in the chat.
Right, perfect. So, you would be able to, again, just keep for your reference, but on the back of this heat sheet is that heat log, or at least a model for if you've never done something like this before. This is a great model to follow. So, as Gina mentioned, we want to make sure that we are keeping a good record of when we are having heating issues. Same thing for hot water issues. So, you would want to collect the date, the time, what is the outside temperature, what is the inside temperature, and then, your initials or signature or whatever. For the inside temperature, that's where those thermometers would come in. I think, like Sarah said, the non-digital one is a great idea for folks that not only just have heating issues, but also like hot water issues as well. So this is a model that can be followed. It can also be, printed out, and you are welcome to make copies of and use this as your record.
What is an HP action? It's a lawsuit started by a tenant or group of tenants against the landlord in the housing court. It can be about lack of repairs or essential services. It could also be about harassment or both at the same time. This is when you bring in the landlord because he's not giving you heat. There's a leak in the ceiling, toilet's not flushing. For whatever issues or repairs that needs to be done, that's when you could commence an HP action.
Right. So if you are needing to start an HP action, so you've done all the things, you've called 311, you've spoken to your landlord, and nothing has been changed. Usually the next step is the HP action. So to start that, you would go down to the housing court in person to retrieve the paperwork. Here is all of the addresses for the housing courts, as well as where you can go specifically to get those papers. Housing Court Answers, this agency here, we do have information tables in all of the courts except Staten Island. So if you live in Staten Island, if you have questions about the paperwork, please feel free to give us a call. We're happy to help that way as well. But for the other boroughs, you are able to visit us in person if you need help with the paperwork or if you have questions. Our tables are usually open Monday through Thursday. And for most boroughs, they stop filing the HP actions around like 3:30, 4 o'clock, right, Gina? I would
3
say like
o'clock in
3:30.
Manhattan.
Okay, yeah. So if you're looking to file an HP action, you do want to come earlier in the day, because some courts stop taking them at a certain time.
Yeah, in Brooklyn, it's 3:30.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a question. What if a caller never made a 311 complaint, but wants to do an HP action and have a heat log?
So the HP action is not dependent on you calling 311 first, which means you don't have to have called 311 first. Because as we're going to get into later on into this training, HPD will get involved in the HP action. So we'll talk details about that later, but you are welcome to start the HP action even if you haven't called 311 before. Okay.
The court forms. When you go to court, you're gonna go to the clerk's window and you're gonna get a couple of forms. This is one of the forms that you're actually gonna get. You have to fill out this form. If you need help in filling out these forms, you can always come to our table so we could assist you. And this is what one of the forms looks like, which you have to put your name, and you need to have your landlord's name and address. PO box is not acceptable. I know in Manhattan, the clerk is very helpful, and she always prints out the information for the landlord before she gives you out the form. If not, the person is not there, you can always come to our table where we have access to look up your landlord's address.
Yes. And in addition to that, let's say that you do not get the landlord's information from the clerk. You are also able to find that information. So there's two ways that we're going to show you. The first way is going to be HPD Online. This is a free tool that anybody can access. So you literally would type in HPD Online. And in this little search bar here, you would go ahead and type in your address. Once you type in your address, let's see if the next page will show. Perfect. Once you type in your address, it will show you here at the bottom all of the information for your building. So when doing HP actions, usually we add the corporation, which is who owns the property. The managing agent is usually who you pay rent to, so that's usually not like the main person that you add on the HP action. You are able to add both if they're two different people, but usually we focus on adding the corporation as well as their address. Okay.
So just wanted to back up for a second. So for not all buildings can use HPD online to look up the address for their landlord. So if you're talking to somebody who's a NYCHA tenant or public housing tenant, they would need to use the NYCHA headquarters address. It's in the chat. And then if this is a private house, you know, and it's just the landlord lives there and maybe also a tenant in another unit, they also won't be found on the HPD website. So there you would be checking on ACRIS, and I put that link in the chat as well.
Yep. And then the next program that we're going to show is what's called Who Owns What, which Gina's going to talk about. But it would also show that information as well. If it's a NYCHA, it will show what the information is or why it's not coming up in HPD.
If the HPD website might be down that day, you could also go on Who Owns What, which is part of Just Fixed, and you will put in your address. And once you put in your address, it's going to bring you to this page. And usually at the bottom, I don't know if it's on the next slide, it will also tell you the name of the landlord and the corporation and the address. So Who Owns What is part of Just Fixed, which is a very nice tool to use. Also, if you use this, it will also give you a NYCHA, and it will let you know it's the HPD building HUD, and it will give you, but like Sarah said, NYCHA, you actually have to serve one place, which in Manhattan will be at 90 Church Street, which is the legal department. That's where you have to serve any papers to New York City Housing.
There is a question from the chat that I had missed before. So this person was asking, can you share your heat log with HPD as a way to help them confirm the violation? Because, you know, with heat measuring, you know, it's hard for the person to show up at the correct time.
You could share it with HPD, but that doesn't mean they're going to log it in as a violation. What this log will actually help, it will be in your HP case, if and when you come in front of the judge, because the judge is going to see that you're actually keeping records of what they, you know, you're claiming that you haven't had heat for all these period. HPD, unfortunately, they have to go and actually find the violation when they go in person. So they can go by what you wrote on a piece of paper. So this will be more good for your HP case, support your case.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, so going back to the court papers, this is usually the first page that you'd be filling out, introducing the repair issues or conditions to the court. So as Gina mentioned before, you're going to write your name. This is called a caption. Also, I like to tell folks, you're going to see this caption or at least a version of this caption over and over again throughout your HP action papers. And so in the caption, you will always see it says tenant or petitioner. Whenever you see petitioner, that's you. You are the person starting the case, so you will always be the petitioner. Your name will always go first in this case. And the landlord or the management company, whoever, corporation, will always be the respondent. Okay, so when you see this caption or this version of the caption, it's always in that order. Same thing, you add your name here, and this is where you'll go adding the different violations or issues you're having in the apartment. And so you will list those out pretty simple. This section here usually asks about HPD's involvement. So as we said before, it's not required of you to notify HPD first, but if you have, this is the section that you would indicate either you have involved HPD and after 30 days, the landlord still has not fixed it, or this section here is saying that you did call HPD, but they did not give a violation. Maybe if it's heat, you know, by the time they went to inspect, it wasn't an issue. So this is just asking about HPD's involvement, but again, it is not required.
So we've got a couple questions in the chat. If Yeah, if you could go
Yeah.
back. So one question, do any of you at Housing Court Answers find the like Law Help New York HP Action Filer tool useful? I actually think it's something we had put in our previous slide deck a while back about HPs, but then we took it out.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, when one of our supervisors had mentioned it's originally like designed to help, but I think there was something wrong with it or something was wrong with it as to why we stopped suggesting it. So we haven't used it. I don't know if it's been fixed or what, but
I think there
yeah,
might
we
also have been an
haven't.
issue of like the court just not accept, like you do all this work to fill
Mm,
it out at home, and then you show up and the court is like, we won't take it. You
yeah.
have to fill them out here.
Yeah, the court is very picky about their forms.
And then there was a second question. Somebody had received a call where the tenant says management is turning off the heat from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m., but HPD doesn't send inspectors during that time.
Mhm.
Um, can the tenant file an HP action then?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly the purpose of doing the HB action is you've done, step one of trying to contact HPD, and unfortunately there's been some sort of issue. And so now you're doing the HP action where, as Gina mentioned, doing that heat log is going to be for this case, right? So again, we're going to get into HPD's involvement in this case in a second, but in case HPD comes and they're not able to find that violation, you have that backup proof of your log of every time that the heat was on or off. So yes, you absolutely are, able to file that HP action and, you use that as your proof. I hope that answers
Yeah.
the question. Okay. Um, Gina, or I can go into this if you need a second. So the second page is usually, we consider this to be like HPD's page. So on the first page, you listed those violations. That's more so like for the court and for your case. This page is usually what HPD will use when they do an inspection. So what happens is step one, you fill out your papers. Once you're done filling out your papers, the clerk will have you set up an inspection date. And the section for it is usually up here, but they will ask you the times and days that works best for you. So you'll be able to dictate that to make sure that you or somebody else will be home for that inspection. Okay. Your contact information here is super important because this is what HPD will use to contact you if need be. And then same thing as I mentioned on that first set of papers, this again is the caption. It just looks a little different. So same thing. In the case of you're the petitioner, it's your name. Sorry, I have a very upset kitty here. It's your name versus the landlord's name or management company's name. So it's the same thing, it just looks a little different on this page. Okay.
And one of our attendees actually mentioned that inspectors work extended and compressed schedules um, to make it so that HPD is able to respond to urgent issues outside of the regular working day.
Hmm.
Um, it's just, it wouldn't be for like class A minor issues.
Right.
So good to know.
Yep.
A fee waiver. This is another form that you will have to fill out. A fee waiver is when you're asking the judge to waive the fee. It's a $45 fee and it has to be exact in order for anyone to file a case in housing court. In the fee waiver form, you're gonna have to put your name, which if you are the petitioner, the landlord's information. You have to write down the violation exists. They're going to they actually made it a little bit more simpler now, where they're only asking your income. They're not asking you how much you pay for electricity, how much you pay for that. So they're just asking you, what is your source of income and from where you get your income. And then if you have any other personal items, sometimes people put like, I have a car, whatever, but that really is not necessary. And it's up to the landlord, not the landlord, the judge discretion to see if they're going to waive the fee. I know that in some courts, sometimes they don't want to give out this fee waiver form, but you do have the right to ask for a fee waiver form. Fill it out, regardless of the income, and let the judge make his or her decision to see if they're going to waive the fee.
Mhm. All right, so as we mentioned before, in terms of steps of what happens when, first step is you have filled out all of these papers. You're going to walk it back to the clerk. As I mentioned just a second ago, they're going to set up that HPD inspection date with you. You will pick that day and time. Please, please make sure someone will be home. If not you, somebody else. It's very important because if you miss your inspection date, it's very hard to get another one within your case. So the next thing is you're going to, usually the clerks will give you a piece of paper to go up to the courtroom, and the judge will review the paperwork and give you a court date to come back. It is very important that you pay attention to that date to come back. There is also going to be at the bottom serving instructions, okay? So now we're going to talk HPD's involvement. So when you get the court papers, it's what we call carbon copied, meaning there's 3 copies of the same page. You get a copy, the landlord gets a copy, HPD will get a copy. Okay, so on the paperwork that the judge signs, there will be both your court date as well as serving instructions on when and how both parties need to be served. If you did not fill out the fee waiver, or if the fee waiver did not get approved, you will need to pay that $45 fee to file the case. And usually they will have you go to the cashier to pay that $45. It is also very important to note that the court is pretty old school. They do not take card. So if you are coming to pay that fee, usually it's $45 exactly that they request, or I believe you can do a money order as well. And then you will also have an index number once you have paid the fee and you've done all of this. And that is going to be how your individual case is identified through the court system. So those are a few things that's really important to pay attention to. After you filled it out, after the judge signs it, you pay the fee, all of the things. Okay. Also too, it is very important, usually when talking about the serving instructions, usually the court gives you a few days to serve. And usually by a few days, I mean like it will say the papers need to be served on or before like the next day or like 2 days from then. So it's very important that you go mail those papers like immediately. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if we put this in the slides, but you need to hold on to the receipts that show you did the mailing on that specific day. And you need to bring those to your court date because you don't want a situation where the person goes to all this work and then when they arrive at the court date, and if the landlord isn't there and the judge says, where are your receipts to show you mailed the papers? And if you can't show them, the whole thing could get dismissed and you've wasted all your time.
Yep.
Preparing for the first court date. Make 2 copies of any previous inspection reports for 311. Any log you have created about heat or other chronic conditions or email. Print out photos. It's very good if you will print out the photos before your court date, because they are not going to sit down and look at your phone. You could bring videos and a USB drive, but very rarely the judge would take the time to do that. So pictures are the best thing for you to bring in. Don't just bring your phone or tablet. Keep your proof of service, like Sarah was saying, your mailing receipt. Even if you send a certified mail return receipt and the landlord hasn't signed for it, still bring the proof that you mail it out the way the court told you, because the judge is going to ask you. That's the first thing the judge is going to ask you. And if you don't have that proof, even if the other side might be there, it's going to get dismissed and you're going to have to start do it again. So don't forget to bring your proof of service. That is the main thing you need to pack the night before you go to court. And don't forget to bring it.
Yes, it's very important. All right, so as far as, you filed the papers, now you've done the service, and now you have your first court date. So it's also helpful to know and identify who is who in the courtroom, especially if you've never been to court before. So, of course, there will be the judge. There will be some court staff, usually the court attorney or the clerk for that courtroom. And they usually sit at a desk in the court space. There will also be the landlord and or their lawyer. So there's a lot of times where the landlord will not come because they have their attorney come. So if you don't see your landlord, that's not unusual, because their attorney will be there. But it is possible that the landlord will be there. So I hope that wasn't confusing. There is also going to be an HPD representative. Okay. So HPD, a lot of people get confused and they're like, oh, I don't understand why HPD is on this case. I'm not trying to sue HPD. The reason HPD is there is think about them as like an expert witness, right? So the HPD representative is there to categorize each violation that was found in the home as a class A, B, or C. And then they will usually talk about for a class C violation or a class A or class B, what is the time frame in which it needs to be fixed by. So that is the purpose of HPD being in the courtroom. They are there for that purpose. Some ways to be prepared, as Gina mentioned before, you want to bring all your evidence, photos, text messages, 311 calls, any previous inspection reports that were given to you, and make sure to be on time. Okay. Especially now it's busy season. The line outside is usually very long. So if you have a court date at 9:30, you don't want to prepare to get there at 9:30. You want to get there beforehand so that you can wait online. You have to go through security, so that you can be upstairs in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. Another thing to be aware of is when you do come upstairs and go into your courtroom, you want to make sure that you check in either with the court officer or the clerk. There are a lot of instances where folks will come and they will just sit down, and nobody knows that you're there. So you want to make sure that you either find the court officer in the room or the clerk at the desk, and make sure that they check you in, have your index number ready, because again, that is how your case is identified. So a few things that usually will happen in this court hearing, if the landlord agrees to make the repairs, meaning there's no discrepancy of what needs to be done, usually there will be a consent order or a stipulation, which basically again will mean, for each repair issue, when is the time frame it needs to be done by. If the landlord doesn't agree or they do not show up, but you have your proof of what's going on, the inspection reports, the court can issue a default order, which would basically mean the landlord kind of lost their opportunity to speak up about the issues, and they now have to do the repairs anyway. Okay, so those are just two different ways that hearing can go. We're going to talk in this next slide about a few more things that usually will happen. Okay, I guess I will be doing this one as well. So a few more possible outcomes. The first thing, as I just mentioned, will be that stipulation. The stipulation will state a few important things. The first thing is going to be access dates. So this is something really important to pay attention to because it's telling you when, again, you or someone else has to be available to let them in. So if they come on the access days and you're not there or you don't let them in, they can come back and say to the judge, hey, they are failing to provide access. We tried. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to those access days, put them in your calendar if you have to, but somebody has to be available to let them in. The other thing to pay attention to is the deadlines for each issue. Okay, so if the judge says that this repair has to be done by January 1st, and January 1st comes and those repairs are not completed, the court is not going to reach out to check in and say, hey, was the repairs completed? It is up to you to come back to let the court know, hey, the deadline has passed, and we'll talk about what, happens if you do have to do that. If sometimes in very rare circumstances, folks do say, the court scheduled my inspection, but nobody showed up. No one from 311 came. In those instances, you can still make a stipulation. You just would have to request to the court for a new inspection date if that's something that you'd like. Another thing that can happen, as I mentioned before, is that default judgment. So if the landlord chooses not to show up, the court will issue a judgment against them to do the repairs anyway. And then we have dismissals or a discontinuance, which would mean a few things. So, if the service is done incorrectly, meaning if the judge says that you need to mail certified mail with a return receipt and you mailed regular mail, the court can dismiss or discontinue your case. If the judge says it has to be done by a certain time and you do it late, the court can dismiss or discontinue your case. Same thing for if the address is incorrect. So that is why it is important to go to the websites like HPD Online or Who Owns What or ACRIS, as I think Sarah had put it in the chat, to verify that those addresses and who you're suing is the correct person. Because again, if it is incorrect, your case could be dismissed or discontinued.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
On the stipulation where you have access dates, always get in touch with your landlord just to remind him about access dates. And the reason is they might not show up. And then if you do an order to show cause to restore for contempt, they will say you didn't get them access, but at least you have proof that you contacted them on those days. And they were the one that didn't show up because they always try to put the blame on the tenant. That is the tenant being difficult. That is the tenant not giving access. So always keep track of every conversation you have during the repair time, when they show up, what they did, and how it was done. Because if you need to bring the case back, you need to have all this proof and documentation because they will always say you're the one that's not actually allowing them to do the repairs.
Correct.
Yeah, and another person in the chat says that they often recommend to tenants that they have somebody just be there with them on the access dates. It's just another set of eyes and ears, somebody who's not involved in the case, who, you know, if they needed to be asked, could say, I was there, this is what happened.
Yep. Absolutely. Folks now also have like Ring cameras, and that is also something that's really helpful. Because you would be able to pull the records from your Ring camera and, you know, show, hey, on December 4th at this day, at this time, nobody was at my door. So that's also something that could be helpful. Another rare occurrence is what is called a motion for opposition. Gina, do you want to kind of just explain what that means?
A motion of opposition, so you did an order to show cause for contempt or for civil penalty. The landlord will file a motion on order, which is an order to show cause. The motion, that's what they use in their words. And they will file a motion opposing your order to show cause, stating that, making allegation that repairs were actually made when it wasn't done, that you were being difficult, that you didn't give them access. So they will file that because they don't want the HPD to fine them. So they don't want to pay the fine. So you have, that's what I'm saying. You need to keep track of everything that goes on during the access day, during the repairs day, when they come, when they leave, and the conversation that you have, what days and what time, because then you do have the right to do opposition motion, which is opposing what he's writing, saying these allegations are false. I did give them access. These repairs were not actually completely like they're alleging on their order to show cause.
Yep. So this does not always happen, but it is definitely something that can happen. So it is good to just know in case you do receive it, because usually this will like come mailed to you. So it is helpful to know what it is in case it does happen and what you could do about it. All right, so a few things. We're going to touch a little bit more about the things that Gina was mentioning, the order to show causes. So we're going to usually break down what that means. So in the sense of an HP action, there's a few different order to show causes that can be done. The most common one will be an order to show cause for a compliance hearing and to ask for fines. So what that means is, hey, we had the stipulation, they were supposed to come on this day at this time, and nobody showed up. And so you're wanting to let the judge know they did not comply. So on that order to show cause, you would be requesting a court date to speak to the judge, and you're making the court aware. So this is like step one, like the first order to show cause that you do. And you can also ask for them to be fined. Now, usually if they fail again, so like the second time that they fail to do the repairs and on, you can do an order to show cause for a contempt hearing as well as bigger fines. For this, the bigger fines is usually considered to be what's called civil penalties. And what that means is for every day that the repair is not completed past that order, the amount that they have to pay out will increase. Now, something that's very important to know about civil penalties is that civil penalties is usually going to be towards the city. Meaning, if you are awarded or they're awarded civil penalties, the amount that they have to pay out does not go to you. It is going to go to the city. Now, again, in some rare occurrences, I have seen HPD defer the civil penalties to the tenant, but that is not a common thing. So that's really important to know is that that money, unfortunately, does not go to you.
So thank you so much, Sheila.
Also, something that is very important to note, or where you can find the information for civil penalties, again, will be on HPD's website. They have a really, really good breakdown showing for each class of the violation what the civil penalties are. So if you're curious, HPD's website would be the place to go to get those details.
It's in the chat.
Awesome. And then it is also, as we've been saying, really important to just keep record of everything that's happening. So if the landlord has missed their access day, I know, calling is usually the easiest option, but if you're going to call, record the conversation. If you have a text messaging option with your management company, keep those text messages, or same thing for emails. If you're reaching out saying, hey, you guys were supposed to be here a few hours ago, are you still coming? That's something that is helpful to keep to show to the court that they did not show up. Okay.
And so just couple things. So phone calls, some landlords try to avoid anything like text or emails because they don't want you to be able to show it to a judge. But New York State, you are allowed to record any conversation that you are part of. So you can record any phone call you have. So we had somebody mention that they had a client whose landlord received a judgment in an HP action with a fine of about $73,000. And then the landlord still didn't comply with the court orders. And yeah, I mean, we talked about how orders to show cause are the next step, but I guess it just goes to show that there might be a lot of different ways that they don't comply. It could be that they don't show up, but it also could be they showed up and they only made some of the repairs, or, it's just there are many different things a landlord might be asked to do, but, just them not complying with whatever, you can do these orders to show cause.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our training today. A few things, as we mentioned before, there are a few different ways that you can reach us. We do have our phone number here that we accept calls Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And we are at all of the tables Monday through Thursday, except for Staten Island. Okay. So you are welcome if you have questions or you want assistance with these papers, please feel free to come visit us. And even now, if you all have any additional questions, we are happy to answer those questions now. And we do appreciate all the questions that we've already gotten. We appreciate the engagement.
Are there translators at the courts?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
They are interpreter in the court, and if the person speaks any language besides English or Spanish, they might speak French, Russia. Usually what you do when you file your papers, the clerk will put it on top, so like that they could request an interpreter that will be available on your court date.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Here's a touchy question. Why does HCA not have a table in Staten Island?
Gina?
We had a table in Staten Island, and during the pandemic, unfortunately, we lost the great worker that we had there. And then it has been very hard to find someone that will work at the Staten Island information table. Well, hopefully we might be able, I don't know when, but that would be something also to reach out to our director, and she might be able to give you more details on that. But we used to have one, but it's hard to cover that table.
Hmm.
So if
Maybe
you know
they-
someone that lives in Staten Island, and let us know.
Mhm.
And maybe we should get more funding so we can hire more HCA
Exactly.
people.
I think that's a
Um,
great answer.
let's see, another question. Do you have general advice on how to move an HP action that has been filed but hasn't been seen by a judge in many months?
When
Why
you say
hasn't
hasn't
seen?
been seen, right? We have the same question. Why has it not been seen? Is it that a stipulation was done and the landlord had their days and time to do the repairs and then nothing happened? Because if that is the case, then you are the one that has to bring that back to court. If the repairs were not done and you have to file that order to show cause, you bring it back to court. You request the court date. But I am interested, what is the reason it hasn't been seen by?
Can that person give a little bit more detail? Because per my understanding, on your first court day, there are litigators from the HPD, they are on your side, and they're going to make sure that these repairs are, enforced. And the first thing they will ask you is, have the repairs, been done? Did they reach out to you?
Right.
They will sit down, they will reach out to the landlord's attorney and say, these are the violations, A, B, C. They will go over the form, and then they will write down some kind of agreement of access date, both parties, all three of you, because the HPD litigator will be there. They're looking out for your best interest. And that's when you come to agreement. It gets signed, and then it gets put up in front of the judge, where the judge will read it, signs it, and then you get your copy and you go home. So really not much is addressed by the judge, but sometimes the judge actually, do you have anything to say? So I would like to know, when you say it's been adjourned but never been in front of the judge, what actually has been transpiring in your case? If you want to give a little more details, or give us a call on the hotline.
Yeah. In most cases, it's the first instance where folks are not aware that they are the ones that have to come back to court. But yes, we would be interested in knowing more details if you can provide. Okay.
This is a tough question, or sad one. What if a tenant wants free legal representation in this type of case?
Well, that would be great if you could get one. But unfortunately, as we all know, legal services right now are short-staffed, they're overwhelmed, and it's very difficult to get legal representation in an HP action. Some people are lucky to get them, but they are very short on staff at this moment. And they really cannot take more cases than what they already have. So that would be something, for you to reach out to your legal service provider nearby, see. Or sometimes, like I always tell people, reach out to your counsel person. Maybe they might be able to advocate on your behalf, to have legal services represent you in your HP case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some legal service providers that have units that do cases, but it's usually for a group case. Like if a
Yes.
whole tenant association
Mhm.
is collectively trying to take action. And even then, they all have capacity issues. So it helps if your tenant association is also involved with some sort of neighborhood group. Yeah, and also just when tenants are working together, sharing information with each other, all of this is always easier.
Yep. Sarah, also, if you don't mind, I would add in Lizney's phone number I can type it if you
I'll
need me
type it in. It's cool.
But they are a great resource for, I believe they run like a legal clinic. Especially because legal aid services are not taking these cases right now, they are one of the resources that will answer questions. And I believe they have like an in-person clinic, I think. You would have to reach out to them to get those details. But Sarah is going to paste their phone number in the chat. So they are a great legal resource to reach out to for questions, and legal questions. If you have general questions on the process, we are happy to answer those. The court also has a help center. The help center does usually have a housing attorney in there, but they will usually answer like legal questions, like no advice type of questions. So you might not be able to get a lawyer to represent, but you do have some resources available to you.
So we have another question. NYSEF is a website that housing court cases usually show up on, and it's just where the documents for a case would live. We did a workshop about this last week. You can check it out on our website. But yeah, we had a question from an attendee who said, do we see any issues if advocates help their clients to create NYSEF accounts where they can upload affidavits and evidence? So this person does it, but they're just nervous about, like, if I make a mistake, could that cause somebody to get a fine or
I don't
any
think so.
trouble?
No, I don't think so. Because even there are some tenants, NYSEF themselves, I believe, ran or is still running a program teaching folks how to use NYSEF. Is uploading stuff on there a part of that training? I have no idea. But tenants, a lot of tenants who are pretty tech savvy have figured out how to create their own accounts and upload stuff. So, if tenants can do it themselves, I don't see an issue with, you helping your client do what they can already do themselves. I don't think there's any legal issues with that at all.
And they will not get penalized just because you
Right.
didn't upload a document the wrong way or
Yeah.
didn't upload the proper document. There's no penalizing for that.
Mm.
The person says, as long as I don't accidentally file a motion in a moratorium of law. Yes, I think you're fine. Oh, it looks like we got some more details on the case that hasn't been seen by a judge in a while.
Yeah, so what they said is they've been working with these tenants, and the last thing that was filed was a letter to the court from the tenant group, and that was in January of 2025. And then and the last stipulation in the case was in July of 2024. And the tenants think that the agreement from July 2024 was never adequately addressed. So, yeah, what options are open to these folks?
So that would go back to what I was mentioning is that if you want this case to go back to court, the tenant, it seems also is tenants plural. So my also follow-up question would be, is this a group HP action? Or is this a single individual HP action? If this is a single individual HP action, then, go to court, file the order to show cause for a court date and explain to the court why you want that court date. If the repairs were never done, you can do that. One thing too, Gina, that I'm not sure, usually when a certain time passes, the court doesn't let them do any more orders to show causes, right? Like there's a time frame you have to come before
No,
you
you
have
can
to
do
start over.
what, the order to show, what do you mean on the HP case?
Yeah, like it says here, the last stipulation was in July of last year. So if the stipulation was in July of last year and nobody filed any order to show causes from then, is
But
it too late to file an order to show cause now?
but the thing just seems like it was a group action. Did they had an attorney?
That was my also follow-up question too. I feel like we have more questions than we have answers.
Uh,
Um, yeah, this is interesting. I don't
Because
know.
it sounds like it was a group action, so that's why probably they didn't get to see the judge because maybe it was a group action. They had legal representation, so maybe both sides were talking, their attorney with the other attorney. And that's why it
Yeah.
never went in front of the judge. They were probably agreeing to access days
Oh.
and repair. I mean, I could be wrong.
Well, no,
Um,
they answered it was a group HP and there was an attorney, but not anymore.
Okay, so the thing that there was an attorney, I mean, it's a year now, so that would be difficult for them to bring it back. And then they will have to do an order to show cause to remove the attorney from the case. So it's a process. Maybe they want to give us a call or reach out to, oh, that's an iffy one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would definitely, like Gina said, have the maybe one of the tenants give us a call.
Yes, and we can
Um,
transfer them to the legal
right,
hotline, but
right,
they will need
right.
an attorney to answer these questions.
Right. Because again, we'd have more questions. Is the attorney, like, was the attorney formally removed? Like in NICEF, more questions we will have. So feel free to give them our phone number or have them come visit us at the table so that we can take a look together. But in general, in order to bring the case back, an order to show cause would have to be filed. But, there's a question on, is it too late? You know, will a new one have to be done? It just depends.
If the person doesn't mind me asking, if you want to send it in private, do you have the index number? It's an interesting case and we would like to look at it
Yeah.
because that's just another learning experience for all of us. So if you could send it, that would be great for us to look at it and see what actually
Oh,
transpired.
awesome. We got the NICEF link
Thank
even
you.
better. Thank you. It's also interesting to look because we always answer questions about group HPs, but I feel like I've never seen an actual group HP filed, right? Like, is the filing different? I don't know.
We used to have it in the good old days.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
these
know
are
if they were
great
good.
questions. Thank you all so much for your questions.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I feel like I've seen group HP actions in my neighborhood that were done with the help of a legal services organization.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, they would be doing the forms. They don't use the self-help forms
That's why I'm
that we
saying,
get at the
and
courts.
that's what I'm saying. It's different. Yeah, I would love to take a look. Yeah.
But if anybody here is in a tenant association that wants to do it even without the help of an attorney, it's just each person would need to fill out a set of forms. Like the top sheets um, would be done together, and you might list all the names of all of the tenants, but then each apartment, those tenants would need to fill out a different set of forms to list the violations inside of their apartment because they can't expect their neighbors to know
Mm.
exactly what conditions exist in their apartments, right?
Okay. We also
Um,
have a training on our YouTube and it's on our website too. You can find. We did a training for group HP actions with two attorneys, I believe, from LAS maybe. So feel free to also peruse through our YouTube or on the website to, for any people that are here in tenant unions or tenant associations looking to start a group HP without an attorney, that training was really great. We had two attorneys give that training with us.
and on that note, Adriana, I put two links in the chat, a link for you to subscribe to our mailing list because we will have, in case you're curious about harassment, because it's related to repairs often, we're going to have a workshop on that soon. And also, I posted a link to our website where you can see our upcoming workshops and recordings of past workshops.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Well, if there are no more questions, again, we thank you all so much for not only joining, but also engaging with us. Great questions. Thank you, Sarah, for assisting us with tech. Thank you, Gina,
So
for also presenting with us. We appreciate you all.
thank you everyone for attending and thank you for my coworkers.
As Sarah mentioned, you guys can find us with more of these trainings on the link here. We do have, for any tenants here in the audience, we do have workshops geared specifically towards tenants on Fridays. So you could also find that on our website. And then you all have our phone number as well as you can find us at the tables as well. All right. So Have a good one. Happy holidays to those that celebrate, and you all have a great rest of your afternoon.